For those who find the pace of work causes them to break into a sweat, though, and that tasks always keep them running, a new scientific study suggests that, well, that's okay, and that it's even better if you feel like you're running in place during office hours. To explain, we brought in lead author Dr. Darla Hammond. She's an assistant professor in the School of Urban and Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Arlington. Welcome, Dr. Hammond.
Well, hello.
So we're here to talk about the utility of installing a treadmill in front of your desk. Is that right?
That is correct.
So whose crazy idea was this?
Well, I cannot take responsibility for that. I would have to hand that over to my colleagues at Mayo Clinic. This actually started with Dr. Levine, who studies inactivity for a living. It is now a branch of science. And he was trying to come up with ways that people could become more active at work, because one of the biggest reasons why America is getting fatter, as we all know over time, is because we're moving a whole lot less at work than we used to before many of us transitioned into office jobs. So Dr. Levine had the idea, well, what if we make a situation where we can walk while we work? And then he hired Dr. Ben-Nur and myself to study productivity in the office. We are professors of human resource management. So this is a team up between some professors of inactivity studies, and that would be Dr. Levine, and myself and Dr. Ben-Nur in human resource management.
So we're really getting at obesity, we're getting at sedentary lifestyle, we're getting at the growing epidemic of diabetes, and all these various factors which occur from basically having a desk job where someone may not move much for 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
That's right. And there's an increasing amount of research that is saying that the headlines now have been, is sitting the new smoking? Is it what is harming our health more than anything else? I do not know if it's worse than smoking. I suspect smoking is still very, very bad. But what the researchers in the field are trying to point out is that sitting is very bad for your health as well.
Now, I was once told that every person should aim for about 10,000 steps a day, which actually is not nearly as much as people might think. It's about an hour, hour and a half, depends on your pace. How long were you having people walk on these treadmills?
Well, it was really up to them. See, the desk was manufactured in such a way that it could, at the push of a button, raise or lower. So the person could stand when they wanted to. They could lower the desk, and then the treadmill would turn into a platform. They could sit when they wanted to, and then they could walk, but only going up to a speed of 2 miles per hour. So we're actually not sweating very much with this slow pace of walking. But it does give you options, and it does lead to expending more calories per day as a result of having these treadmills in the offices.
And let's talk about the calorie expenditure, how many calories were burned. About what was on average burned during a day using this treadmill?
We did a form of study that's called a within-person study, meaning we're looking at the same person and how many calories do they expend when they have a treadmill and how many calories they expend when they don't. And we measured this with something a lot like a Fitbit that people are using nowadays to count steps or measure calories burned. We were interested in calories burned, and what we found is that the number of calories burned went up by 74 when the treadmill was in the office versus when it was not. This tells us that people aren't using the treadmill a whole lot at the office, but they are using it for some of their tasks, and then not using it for others of their tasks, depending upon what they feel works best for them in the moment.
Now, how did you choose your population? Were there limitations based on medical risk, or was this for every single person in the office?
Well, every person in the office was invited. However, if anyone had a health concern, they were excluded from the study. We didn't want to put anyone in any kind of danger. And so to play it safe, we only allowed people who were A, not pregnant, and B, in good general health. Not having any major diseases of any sort, because we didn't know what kinds of complications, if any, would arise. There weren't any complications. About, I would say, half of the people were overweight and trying to lose weight, and the others just wanted to get more activity into their day.
Was there a different level of activity on the treadmills for those who used it, dependent on the day of the week or the hour of the day?
We did look at the hours of the day. We don't know about the days of the week, because what we have is average for numbers of calories burned by day. That's the variable that we were able to collect from the machines. But we were able to split it into 3 time frames. So during the day, 7 to 5 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock to 8 a.m. Until 7 a.m. And what we found was that in the first 8 hours of the day, the 8 hours that coincide with working, the calories expended went up by the most. So that is a clear indication that they are walking more at work. We did not watch them, so we can't guarantee that they were on the treadmill, but we do know that they were walking more at work. They were burning more calories at work. They also burned a few more calories, about 20 more, during the evening, and no more at night. The other thing that we did in terms of allocating, we allocated the amount of time they spent in different categories. So the other thing that the accelerometer captured for us was how many minutes of the day were they in a sedentary position, which was measured as anything where they're moving less than 1 mile an hour. And that doesn't necessarily just mean steps. That means anytime that they were moving an equivalent of less than 1 mile per hour. So that was the sedentary category. We found that the number of minutes in that category dropped. And then the second one is the moderate minutes, and that one increased. So moderate is when they were between 1 and 2 miles an hour. And then active minutes were when they were walking at 2+ miles per hour. And in the active category, we also had them spend a little more time there as well.
So they often say that success breeds success, and so I want to follow up and see if I'm understanding this. Are you saying that the general trend line that you saw as the experiment progressed was that more people became generally more active?
We didn't notice that trend per se. What we noticed was when the treadmill was in the office and they had a treadmill desk, that the calories went up. And so it's not a trend over time that it was increasing or decreasing. We did find a trend with performance, but not so much with calories burned.
So let's move into performance. How did it affect their work?
Their work performance was measured by both the employees and their supervisors over the course of the study, which was 52 weeks. And we started measuring the performance before they received treadmills and then continued to measure it over time. Initially, their performance became worse, and we attribute this to they had to get used to walking while they were working and learning what tasks are good to walk while doing and which tasks you really need to sit in order to accomplish. So there was this learning period, adjustment period of a few months. And then after that, the trend turned around, and by the end of the study, the overall trend was showing that they were better performers than they were initially. So it went down and then dipped back up.
Now, you said that this was a voluntary experiment. Did you find that participation increased as the months went on, as people began either succeeding or seeing what others were doing?
No, we did not, because we only had a limited number of treadmill desks. We had 40 treadmill desks purchased. And so all 40 of them remained in use for the entire year-long period. And 36 of them remained in use by the original participants.
So a question I probably should have asked you at the beginning. Are you seated or are you walking right now? Are you on a treadmill?
I am walking.
You're walking while doing this?
I am walking right now. Yes, I absolutely am. And I think I started to think so much about how I was walking that I forgot about what I was trying to say. So those kinds of things, that's what can bring your performance down. But I also find that sometimes when I walk while I'm working, it brings my performance up, depending on what I'm doing and how much thought I have to be putting into it at that particular moment.
Did you go look at where performance increased if I did A, but where they said, well, no, I better be sitting to do B?
We actually didn't. That is something we would really like to do as a follow-up study. This is an entire quantitative study, and it was week by week measuring their performance. We gave them very short surveys because we were surveying them every week. So we weren't able to ask any questions about what tasks were they completing when they were walking versus when they were sitting versus when they were standing. But I do suspect that there are some patterns, and that is a very interesting follow-up study that we would like to do if given the chance.
The other question which came to mind was whether or not you looked at stress levels, whether or not they self-reported more or less stress during the course of the ability to exercise.
Yes, we did look at stress levels. And the first thing I should bring up about this company is that at baseline, their stress levels were not very high. The baseline stress levels were only about 1.4, 1.5 on a scale of 1 to 4. So we're talking about a company that has done quite a bit to keep employee stress levels under control. They had an active wellness program, and we're very concerned about employee health, and it shows in those levels of stress. But we did not find any decrease in stress levels from the treadmill as a result.
What type of task, what kind of office was this?
It was a nonprofit financial services firm.
Okay. So not necessarily as much reading, but a lot of calculation?
I would say so, and a lot of telephone work because there were people involved in collections, a lot of people working with numbers, accountants, and whatnot. So really a lot of your standard desk jobs at this company.
So,
I visited the organization. They have cubicles everywhere, and offices along the hallway for the more senior level staff. It looks very much like many office locations.
So post the study, did the people in the office want to keep the treadmills? Did the managers want to install them? Did they think it was a good idea?
Yes, the managers kept all the treadmills. We talked to them about a few months ago, and the manager who we spoke with said that it's now 4 years later, and all of the treadmills remain in use, about half of them from the original participants. And generally, the reason some of the participants were no longer using the treadmills is because those participants no longer worked there. So the people who switched to the treadmill desk seemed to like them, or at least liked them enough to keep on using them.
Now, many of us don't have that option, at least for the moment, in our own offices. But does the study also suggest that it would be a good idea to find a way to either exercise in the office or spend that lunch break walking around a little bit?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think that you could get the same types of benefits from doing that as I'm doing right now, walking around as I'm talking to you. Another thing that is cool to keep in mind is that this doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. For example, I work at the University of Texas at Arlington right now, and the University of Texas at Arlington library has put 2 treadmill desks in for students to sign up and take turns working on a treadmill desk for a while. There are several other offices that I've heard across the country that are doing the same thing. They're having a couple of treadmill desks. People can sign up to use them in certain slots of time and save some work for when they would be on the treadmill. So that's another idea as well. I also know some organizations put treadmills in an office location so employees can walk on them during lunch, or perhaps they could even walk on them while they are thinking about a complex task or stuck on a problem that they're trying to solve, or maybe like me on the phone.
Looking at the 10,000 reasons why it's useful to take 10,000 steps, even while sitting at your desk or walking at your desk. I'm Andrew Hiller for the Prism on Radio VR.